The GR Yaris is a rally-inspired beast that combines the best of Toyota's engineering and racing heritage. It's a car that can take you from the grocery store to a gravel racetrack and make you feel like a champion in both locations. Here's why the GR Yaris may be the ultimate hot hatch. To start, let's talk about the engine. The GR Yaris is powered by a 1.6-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine that produces 268 horsepower and 273 foot-pounds of torque. That's more than some sports cars with twice as many cylinders. The engine is paired with a true 6-speed manual transmission that delivers crisp and precise shifts. No flappy paddles or slush boxes here. The GR Yaris can sprint from 0 to 60 in just 5.5 seconds and reach a top speed of 143 miles per hour. That's pretty impressive for a car that started its life as an economy vehicle. But what makes this car most impressive is its handling ability. It features a sophisticated all-wheel drive system called GR4, which can vary the torque distribution between the front and rear axles from a 60-40 split all the way to a 30-70 split depending on the driving mode and conditions. The GR Yaris also has a lower and wider body than the regular Yaris, with a carbon fiber roof and aluminum doors and hood to reduce the weight and also lower the center of gravity at the same time. The suspension is tuned for performance with McPherson struts at the front and double wishbones at the rear. The front brakes are 14-inch vented disc brakes and 12-inch disc brakes at the back end. The GR Yaris also looks the part. It has a sporty and aggressive design with a large grille, LED headlights, flared wheel arches, a rear spoiler, and dual exhaust pipes coming out the back. The interior is simple but functional with sport seats, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, a digital instrument cluster, an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system, and also it has rear seats, which are not found in the top trim of the 4-door GR Corolla, which was recently added to the game. The GR Yaris is a tribute to Toyota's legendary rally cars, such as the Celica GT4 and the Corolla WRC. It's a car that was born to compete in the World Rally Championship, but also to thrill everyday drivers who love driving. Let's go ahead and take it to the expressway and see how both the stock engine and this 2JZ version handle our lap. With the stock engine, the GR Yaris is pretty quick and very agile due to the short wheelbase, and that all-wheel drive system really adds to the stability of the car. You end up buying it with it set to 50-50, but I dropped the percentage back a little bit more towards the rear end, making it a 40% to the front and 60% to the rear, and that added in the ability to turn the car. After building it out, it has 410 horsepower, 349 foot-pounds of torque, and the weight comes in at 2,218 pounds. I run my cars pretty stiff, and I noticed that when I first had it set up I stiffened the rear end a little too much, which made it very twitchy, and with that short wheelbase this is a little bit difficult to recover, so you want to have the front end a little stiffer than the rear. I'll have the setups available at the end. I run my engine swap setups pretty much the same, so I just show that one at the very end of the video. The car treated the tires pretty well, in that it only wore the front tires out around 10% and the rear tires were worn at 5%, even though I did add that additional power to the back end. The weight distribution on this car and the engine swap version is 59-41, with the majority of the weight going to the front, so that kind of explains why the front tires wore a little bit more aggressively. And usually when you're building up an actual all-wheel drive car, the engine layout can kind of dictate whether or not the power is going more towards the front and the rear. And the Yaris is typically a front-wheel drive car, so it tends to be more of a front-wheel drive favoring all-wheel drive system. The performance points ended up at 685.58 fully built out with a medium turbo, so this car is perfect for Le Mans as it is, and it will do just fine. We ended up crossing the line at 2 minutes 6 seconds.56. But let's go ahead and take the engine swap version out and see how that handles our lap. The GR Yaris takes the 2JZ motor like a champ. It gives it that beautiful engine note and ends up producing a very well balanced car, even though it is a little bit front heavy, but with that all-wheel drive system it plants the power really well. I did have to increase the braking sensitivity to the rear differential, and that gave the car a slightly longer feel and made it less likely to kick that back end out, because it can get pretty aggressively sideways when you're first taking it out. The car ended up picking up 253 pounds, bringing the total weight to 2,471, but it almost doubled the horsepower and torque, bringing the total horsepower up to 800 even, and the torque rating went to 710.1 foot-pounds of torque. So quite a big increase, and it really livens this car up. The performance points took a pretty big jump as well, going all the way to 779.23, which essentially brings it up an entire class. So it's more likely to fit in with the 800 class vehicles at this point, but you can still detune it down to the 700 series, and it's not a bad idea to do so, because you can use it right to the limit and have the higher torque and higher horsepower settings along the way. As you would expect, it was more aggressive on fuel and tires. The front tires wore at about 25%, where the rears were about 10% worn, and the fuel it was using would last about 3 laps. But if you are detuning it, that does get extended, plus you can always adjust the fuel maps to make it fit. On the modified version, we ended up crossing the line at 1 minute 54.006 seconds. So that ends up putting it right behind the Ferrari Italia and just in front of the Supra where this engine came from. The stock version was down in 48th place behind the Cobra Daytona Coupe and just in front of the 1970 GTR. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content like this, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. Thank you, and have a great night.